in this episode.
The more questions you ask, the more you're going to really know if that person's the real deal.
Or sincere.
Yes. I always view it as being a 5-year-old again and asking the question why 5 times. So we really love you. Well, why? Well, because we like him as a player. Well, why? Well, because he plays this position really well. Well, why? Well, he does this, this, and this. Well, why? And if they're able to go down the line and just continually answer those questions, they sincerely want you as a player, and they do think that you are a right fit, and you're just not a person that's going to be a sale for them.
Mm-hmm.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of The Closing Pitch. My name is Spiker Helms, and this is a show about people, culture, and how to create a winning lifestyle. We have not posted in an extremely long time. We've been busy.
Understatement.
It's an understatement. I hate saying that because it's like, oh, you don't have time for us. But like, we've been trying to figure out ways to podcast, and right now we are in Hilton Garden Inn in Indianapolis, Indiana, and we are holding the mics. We have progressed backwards in our podcasting career, where we are holding the mics on a cylinder table, and we're trying to make this production as professionally as we possibly can.
Not very professional, but it gets the job done.
Well, we wore the same shirt, so we're on the same page. So we do look professional in that way.
You're in a green chair from 1990, it looks like.
Well, fits my eyes. It's hazel. So today what we're talking about is we're in tryout season. St. Louis has already done their tryouts by the time we post this. We do have a 16, 17s, and 18s tryout coming on July 26th. We're also going to have some 15s out there as well.
Well, and our teams across the country are currently in tryout season. It's just one of those time periods of the year where I would say for a vast majority of the population in America, this is a tryout season, which happens, your seasons all come to an end, and then it is a mad dash to find next year's situation.
In all honesty, clubs for national clubs, every day is tryout season.
True.
I mean, because Las Vegas is on a different timeline, Texas is on a different timeline, Wisconsin's on a different timeline. But again, I do think that there's a mesh, like an intersection in the month of July the beginning of August, where it is technically tryout season.
Well, and just let me kind of explain the way this process goes, because some people might be listening and not really understand it. You go through like the yearly time frame for again, most situations, youth teams to high school teams, and everywhere, probably other than the states of Florida kind of operates different. The South, if you operate on 2 seasons due to your climate, that's a little different. And then some of the Northeast climates are again a little later than most. Because their seasons go longer because they can't start as earlier as what a lot of the Midwest. But I would say for 45 states out of the country, your time frame is late July, early August start period, and that's your same end period for the next year. And as that end period starts to get closer and closer, it is advantageous for teams or clubs to start posting their tryouts to get you intrigued, whether you're with the club currently or a prospective parent and player looking for a new situation. So it's advantageous for them to start posting during season for the tryouts that are now upcoming, because let's say you end on July 10th and you're a youth player, well, those tryouts are going to start right away, because they want to see what you look like when you're in shape. They want to set their teams as early as possible. And honestly, it's a competitive race for players. I don't love the way it's set up personally. It's certainly no benefit to me as a human being. I mean, I have 0 off days, neither do you, for a solid month and a half during that. But it's what you have to do. It's the nature of the beast, because if you play it nice and you give people time off, etc., you're just simply not going to get the players, right? So
Well, you're in an extremely competitive environment, and in the past, it wasn't like that. And I remember talking with my family members. They're like, "Oh, it was so great back in the day," and like, yeah, there were some good things, but it wasn't as competitive. It actually is given more an advantage to the consumer, the player, the parent, than the club, because obviously we would love to have a monopoly and everyone comes to us, right? Which again, for colleges, that technically is how it's set up. It's more there's limited colleges with a lot of players. They get to choose what players they want. For a club, though, there are a lot of clubs. There are a lot of teams. There are a lot of independent teams who are able to get players. Now, again, there's more players than there are teams, but it is way more competitive than a college recruiter, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, it's simple supply and demand, correct?
Yep.
It literally is that. There is a ton of demand for player, and there's a lot of supplies of players, okay? And so for right now, the situation where we're at, it's just gotten more competitive and more competitive for players, and there's more options than ever before. There really is.
Which is great, because as a consumer, you want that, because then it's going to end up you have the choice of choosing the best situation for yourself.
Right, and you're going to force, as a consumer, because there are more options, you're going to force those clubs or teams to have to, either present a great option for you for the next year and grow and change and expand their offering every year over and over and over, or, choose not being the club that player chooses.
And the problem, though, that the consumers have, which is the time, you don't have enough time to make an educated decision. That's why you always have to be on the lookout for knowing what other clubs are doing, which gives you a better idea of what's out there for options.
And that is where our conversation today is headed.
Yep.
Something that has always kind of bothered me, and keep in mind, I'm a club director as a spiker. We run and operate a club, the Rawlings Tigers. You guys all know that. Something that has honestly bothered me for a long, long time is the way the consumer is treated throughout this process. Because we have a lot of different consumers who listen to this, okay? And what I mean by consumers is parents and players, okay? We have parents and players who are very educated on the process. They've lived it. They've been in it day in, day out. They know all the options. They kind of know what the different clubs and teams present in terms of offerings, in terms of coaching, in terms of facilities, in terms of schedule, in terms of just the way their coaches interact with players. And that's awesome, because then they have all the answers in front of them to make the educated decision on what is best for them and their family. And that is tremendous. That's what I want to happen for everybody. Then you have a second level down to that. You have some parents and players who have been in it a little. They're figuring it out. The players have been in, they kind of know the clubs, but they don't. And the teams, the independent teams as well. And the parents, they've kind of figured this out a little bit, but they don't really know. And they've educated themselves a little, but you only have so much time in the day and the year. And you see what you see and you know what you know. And so right now, though, they're getting pushed in certain directions without all the information in front of them. That's a problem. The third is the brand new parent, the brand new player. This is just a deer in the headlights look. This is overwhelming. I don't have a clue where to go with my son. I'm just trusting what some friends are telling me. I have hearsay here, and basically they're at the mercy of whatever tryout they go to, and whoever they talk to, they're going to listen and almost have to take that word as 100% truth. And they don't know that, right? And I wish the situation, and we're going to talk about 3 distinct situations to look out for if you're one of those parents or players that might be a warning sign for you, okay? That maybe I should take a step back, reevaluate the situation, look into other options, etc. And then we'll probably present some, some things you should be looking for in that situation as well.
How I view it is it's very similar to like someone that just gets introduced to working out. There are a million gyms, and there are a million ways of attacking your fitness journey. You have the supplement route. You have the nutrition route. You have what gym should I go to? What workout program should I go to? It's just a whole encompassing thing. And I remember the first time that I jumped into working out, it was extremely overbearing. But I ended up really talking to a lot of people and then figuring out like, okay, what are your credentials? What's your background? How do you know this? And then obviously if they looked strong and they looked athletic, I was like, oh, I probably could trust them.
Mm-hmm.
They know what they're doing, but then that could backfire and be like, oh yeah, take this steroid.
Right.
That's a really bad idea. So it is one of those things where it's a combination of testimonials, combination of word of mouth, with your inner circle, and then also, being able to have conversations with the leads of those, clubs and
or head coaches,
head coaches,
right.
Whatever. So the three things that we wanted to talk about, which I think are very evident and red flags in my opinion, and I actually did this through my fitness journey as well as my finance journey, because
it's applicable in so many
it's
different
applicable
areas.
to everything. And when we say these things, you're like, oh yeah, this is common sense. But it's one of those things where you just have to keep on reminding yourself, because I forget it all the time as well.
Sure.
But one of them I never forget, which is appeal to slander. When someone is slandering somebody else out of the blue for no reason, it's a huge red flag for me. And I'm like, well, why do they exert that energy and that time to focus on another person or another entity? That's a huge red flag, because that means that you're not worrying about your product. You're not worrying about your service. You're not worrying about your actions. You're more worried about somebody else's actions, which is why are you even doing that?
Well, like, so in very simple terms, I bet everybody who's listening has had a conversation around youth sports where you've had a conversation with someone and you're talking about a certain team or a certain club, and the first thing that comes out of that other person's mouth is some negativity towards them, bashing them, saying this or that, or, oh, that club's terrible, here's why, here's what I heard, this and that about this coach is terrible, whatever, without presenting any positive facts or any background on it. It's just negative.
Well, it's the first thing. It's the first thing.
And it's the first thing they say.
Yeah, and I actually, when someone leads with, you know what, there are things I like and there's things I dislike, and when they say that,
that's different.
That's when I'm all in on the conversation.
That's different.
I'm like, I think I can trust you.
That's different, because it's different than just bashing to bash to make yourself look better. That's a different thing than saying, oh, well, I'm glad that you brought that up. You know, here's my experience with it, okay? And from my experience with all these years of being here and here, here's my likes and dislikes. That's a totally different way to approach a situation. There are people out there that are just going to, you know, what I found is if they're just unhealthily bashing other people for no reason, they probably generally don't have a whole lot of positive things on their end to then present to you. They don't, you know, for example, in my situation, if a prospective parent was asking me about not only our program, okay, but then asking, well, just, hey, coach, what do you know about, you know, program B, program C, program D? If I just simply said, well, listen, hey, you didn't hear it from me, but they suck. They're not very good on the field. They have terrible facilities. They're god awful. Those coaches over there, they're really mean. They yell at kids all the time. They do this and that. And I didn't give you any follow-up as to what I can provide you, or why did I not lead with that first? That's a red flag. That probably means I don't have a whole lot of things going on my end. How I would personally respond to that situation is go, well, to be honest, I think there are a lot of good options out there. I think that everybody presents a different, example, a different appearance in this. But for me, I'm going to talk about what we do. I know I can control that. I don't live in their shoes. Okay, I don't live in their club. I don't operate their club. So I'm not going to sit here and say things negatively about them that I honestly don't know. It's either hearsay or something else. I'm going to choose my time to present to you our situation. And then you can then ask them, because I want you to hear it from them. You don't need to hear it from me.
The best car sales guy, and I think this is very applicable to the conversation, the best car sales guys that I've come across, and I felt very comfortable with them, are the ones that are able to talk about different brands that they're not selling, as well as being able to explain the benefits, and the person that knows that they've driven those cars, that like, oh, this is what I love about it, this is what I don't like about it. And they'll even bash their own cars, like, this is what I don't like and this is what I do like. And they just try to figure out what matches you, because they are a consumer and you are a consumer, so our tastes are completely different. That's when you really know you have a person that you can trust and is actually really good at their craft as a salesperson. Because technically a salesperson, yeah, you're supposed to make sales, but they're also trying to guide you through the process and make sure, like, hey, there's plenty of fish out in the sea. I just want to make sure that what's the right fit for you. And I've done that with our players. There's been a number of players where I've had conversations during tryouts and loved them as a player, and then the parent starts talking to me and I'm like, you know what, I don't know if we're the right fit for you, because this is the expectations that we have, this is what we're trying to do, and this is what we have to offer, and it seems like you want this instead. I think you're just going to be a little bit frustrated with the situation.
Yeah, and I think it just shows a sense of, genuineness that I think is very attractive to most people, to where you're literally trying to look out for the best thing for them.
Yep.
That's the people you want to surround yourself with. That's the people that you want to be talking to. And if they can give you a situation where if they can give you honest feedback to say, like what you just said, hey, honestly, you might not be a fit for us for what you're looking for. I know what we offer. I know what we have in store for our players and our teams. It might not be what you're looking for, but here's a situation that I know might be a fit. Those are the people you genuinely want to talk to.
100%. The next one is I'm going to start the easiest and then go to the hardest ones to really recognize. The fear of missing out. And as a player, I dealt with this when I was playing, which is a coach would give me a deadline and loved the conversation all the way up to the point, and then the coach ended up saying, well, if you don't join us now, I don't know if that spot is going to be there or not. And I'm thinking to myself, well, if the spot's not going to be there, then you probably really don't want me as a player, because if you think I'm really talented and you think I'm the right fit, you're going to wait.
Right.
Like, you're telling me, and I never threw 95. You're going to tell me that the 95 kid comes in, you do the fear of missing out? No, you're not doing that. Like, we'll wait for you.
Well,
if you're talented enough, we're going to wait.
My simple question to any parent player out here who's listening to this situation is, why do you think they deadline or timeline you?
Yeah. Now, here's the thing, though. It's a two-way street. The consumer has to understand that they have to have empathy for the club, because you can't just hold on to a spot
forever.
Forever.
I get it.
It can't be for a week, 2 weeks. You can make a decision in a matter of 2 days, 3 days. One day is minimum, I think, because you got to sleep on it. But like, if you're dragging this out because you're taking advantage of the person that giving you ultimate time, which I've had those players and I've actually deadlined them. If I haven't heard from them in 2 days, I've sent them a text and said, hey, we're going to move on here in the next 24 hours.
But that's a totally different situation. And I'm going to give you the recruiting example to this, okay? Because we have a lot of players who get recruited by colleges. And earlier on in the process, generally the longer they have to make a decision, because the college coaches show a little empathy there for a lot of times, and they want to give you times to go visit other schools and really make an educated choice. But the longer that situation goes on, I get questions from parents all the time, well, are they going to deadline me? And I go, probably. And you know why? It's their livelihood on the line if you don't go there. And if they don't act on someone else, they got to go find another Jimmy and Joe if you're not going to go there. So it's a two-way street. But it should never be something where
in 24 hours.
Well, even 24 hours, or the fact of our conversation is so fresh in your mind, and then an adult gives you, well, hey, and by the way, after all this great stuff, and we've had a great conversation, just to let you know, you have 24 hours, you have 48 hours, so give me a timeline or an answer. They're doing that because they don't want you to explore other opportunities. If they don't want you to explore other opportunities, they're honestly fearful of those opportunities. So you have to ask yourself something as to why. Why would they be fearful? Is it because their offering isn't up to the standards of other offerings and they don't want you to see that? That's very true. That's very true. Or they're just, putting you to the test of, like I said, fear of missing out. But I think, again, it goes back to, I think most clubs who are very comfortable, or teams that are very comfortable with themselves and very comfortable with their offering and know they have a good situation in place and a situation that can help you grow as a player and a family, those people are going to openly say, go explore. Mm-hmm. Here's my offer.
Well, and also they're when they're talking, they're not going to say right after they pitch you, all right, you have 24 to 48 hours. They wait for the consumer to say, well, how much time do I have? And I'm like, well, you know what? I would say 2 days is a great time. If you can get back to me on Saturday, that'd be fantastic. I might check in before that if that's okay.
They're not going to be fearful of you shopping.
No, they wouldn't be fearful.
Point.
Yeah.
My point is they are not going to be scared because they are very comfortable in what they offer. They're very confident in what they offer. And they know that what they offer is good. They know that can help you. So go shop, go look. Mm-hmm. I would say that to anybody who's trying out for us. Make sure you're educated. That's what the whole point of this podcast is. We're openly saying that. Go be educated in the process. Go make sure you look and you see, and then come back and make an educated decision. Same thing on college recruiting. Do the same thing. Any good recruiter is going to say, yes, there are a lot of good options out there. You need to do your due diligence. Here's what my school, here's what my program offers. We believe in it. We know there's proven results. You can see it on the billboard with all the national championships, et cetera, that we have, but it has to be a fit for you. Now, am I going to give you 4 months to make that decision? Absolutely not, because that does a disservice to me. And you guys have to understand that.
Well, you also have to understand, too, a Power 5 is going to operate a little bit differently than a mid-major and a D2 and a D3. So you just have to know what platform you're on, mm-hmm. and knowing what the timeline is, because those Power 5s are aggressive with the top 1%ers.
Right.
They're extremely aggressive. So the last one that we wanted to talk about, which is, I think, in my opinion, is the hardest thing to recognize. So the first thing was slander. That's really easy to recognize, especially in a social media world. 2 is fear of missing out. You just have to really read in between the lines and really kind of assess the situation as you're talking to that mm-hmm. person. And then the third one is the bait and switch. The bait and switch is common amongst other industries. You hear that a lot, like the expectations were this, but then it was not that. Mm-hmm.
We thought we were getting to this, but then it ended up being that.
Yep, 100%. And you know you're in a bait and switch when you end up at the tail end. And you're like, damn, I just got had. Mm-hmm. The best way to recognize a bait and switch is, 1, testimonials, not the testimonials that the company's giving you, but if you can kind of dig into the weeds of the review systems. So, like, example, we're here in Indianapolis, Indiana. We're in a rain delay right now. That's why we're podcasting. We wanted to go eat somewhere, and I went onto Google and I just searched the reviews, and these are people that are just random Joes. And I do know that companies in the past, they do hire out people to give them good mm-hmm. reviews, but Google does a pretty decent job of flagging those. And we found this unbelievable Cajun restaurant next to Butler University.
Right.
And that's the best way to understand what is the sentiment out there for that company. And you can do that. The best part about it is you have Twitter. That helps out a lot. Just type into any search engine of any social media platform, type in the name, and you're going to find something. Obviously, Google is a good way of doing that as well. But don't go into it and take the word of the person that is trying to sell you. Always do your due diligence and research it before you go forward.
I think the key thing you just said there is that person trying to sell you? Is that person trying to show you a situation that is all rainbows and roses and that everything is perfect. And yes, those 20 requests you just asked for, absolutely, you're going to get every single one of those. You're going to play every single inning. You're the stud of the team. We're going to do this. We're going to go to all these places, this and that, and it's all for the affordable price of okay? If somebody is literally painting a picture that seems too good to be true, it might be too good to be true. I think, again, you need to look for someone in the situation who's going to be honest, who's going to tell you their program, tell you their offering, tell you their success results, tell you this or that, but then also answer questions honestly. When you're asking the questions that are very important to you, and that is a big part of this process, you need to have some questions when being presented an offering for the next year that are important to you, because then it can help you facilitate who is the phonies and who are the realists.
Well, the hardest problem is, what questions do I actually ask? Which, again, that's hard because you
might not know them.
You might not have the experience to ask that question. The big things, just thinking about it, is the who, what, where, when, and why. Just going through those 5 and figuring out, okay, what's the offering? Who's going to be coaching my kid? Where are we going? Why are you guys doing this? Why do you offer this service? Those types of questions, and how is this all going to happen? Those are really easy things to come up with, and then that'll probably trigger something into your mind that's more applicable to you, and you'll start asking the right questions.
Yeah, no, that's huge. And I think, again, that helps you really filter out who the genuine people are and who the people that might have ulterior motives for that situation. Because, again, you're going to go into situations where you're going to hear absolutely everything that you possibly want. I'm not saying there are not clubs or teams that can offer that, but I'm saying it's few and far between, that there won't be issues.
The more questions you ask, the more you're going to really know if that person's the real deal.
Or sincere.
Yes. I always view it as being a 5-year-old again and asking the question why 5 times. So we really love you. Well, why? Well, because we like him as a player. Well, why? Well, because he plays this position really well. Well, why? Well, he does this, this, and this. Well, why? And if they're able to go down the line and just continually answer those questions, they sincerely want you as a player, and they do think that you are a right fit, and you're just not a person that's going to be a sale for them.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. And it's, you're going to, as you do it over and over and over and over again, and this is something that, again, I try to impress upon people that do your homework. Make sure you have question set, like Spiker's saying. Make sure you understand the entire market and landscape that's available to you. Make sure you know all the options, or at least a lot of them, and don't just go in with only 1 or 2. Have a few that you can go through, that you can present these questions to, because at the end of the day, then you're going to be able to vet them against each other. You're going to be able to look at, position or situation A presented it like this. Situation B presented it like this. Situation C answered it totally differently. Now we as a family can sit down, talk about that, because at the end of the day, it's a big decision. I just talked to our players the other day about, ask yourself over the past year, how many hours you put in at your craft wearing this uniform. Be prideful in that. And that's going to shape you as a human being. Parents, who you put your kids around is going to shape who they are as human beings. It's going to play a role in their future, in the outcome of where they get and where they go. Okay? So that's a big deal. It's not just financial.
Yeah, one of our parents, who's a current college coach, he phrased it really well. I don't care what the brand is, and I don't care what level it is. My biggest priority is who's the man that's behind it, because that's who's going to really teach my kid.
And raise your kid.
Yeah. Right? So leaders,
parental figure, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, the leader is the influencer to the other coaches. So like in a club like ours, we have a lot of teams, obviously. But the person that's ahead of it is us, the four amigos, which is me, Dave, Shannon, Jaws. Then obviously we just added Evan Pratt, so a fifth one. And then you have the other coaches that are there, like Nash, Trent, Ryan, like the mainstays, like Mike Callahan, Grayling Tobias. Like those are the guys that really influence the club. And those coaches that are below them, they usually ask us a lot of questions throughout the year, and it influences them. We always have those Monday meetings on WebEx to go over things. So like we're all on the same page. So like if you see the leader and you're like, ooh, I really trust that guy, more than likely it's going to be a really good situation at the lower levels.
Yeah. I mean, again, my point is just this, like they're going to have an impact on your child one way or the other. Would you rather have done all the homework you possibly can, asked as many questions, and literally exhausted that situation, or would you rather just make a quick decision? Which one do you think is going to lead to a better outcome over and over? That would be the only question I would present. All three of these examples that we gave today, I think the answer is pretty simple. Doing my homework. Asking as many questions as possible.
We've all been to a bad restaurant, right?
Right.
And usually when we choose the bad restaurant,
it's a snap decision.
It's a snap decision. And we're like, screw it. I'm sure that's fine. And then you get food poisoning.
Right. It's true.
And you walk into the restaurant and you're like, man, there's really nobody in here, but it's probably just a down night. And you get to the table and you're like, man, this waitress is kind of weird. And then you look to your right, look to your left, like the flooring is kind of messed up. That's fine. It's probably a hole in the wall. It's good. And then you get your food and you're like, oh, that food doesn't look good, but I bet you it tastes good. And next thing you know, food poisoning.
Right. Do your homework.
And you're sick.
Exactly.
Guys, that's this episode of The Closing Pitch. Please give us a 5-star review. Also, if you have any other fallacies or detections, we'd like to hear them. My email is spiker@rawlingstigers.com. Dave's is dburkby@rawlingstigers.com. You can also hit us up on the social media platforms. Our TikTok is absolutely blowing up, Rawlings Tigers _ Go ahead and check that out. Instagram's doing really well too. Just send us a DM and we'd love to answer it.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.